sorry, Malkin's a better player than Jonathan Toews, but Toews made it because
leadership.
Chicago, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Captain Serious. Yeah. You see all these captains.
It's all about that
Canada.
leadership. Leadership gets you into the top 100. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, no, totally.
I should just go look up. I'm sure there's a stat on Hockey Reference for leadership. There's got to be by now. I mean,
it's the Marc Messier Leadership Award, and I think Toews has won it every year, right?
Yeah, no, but I mean like an actual running stat to track a guy's leadership, because it seems to be valuable. The fact that he got into the top 100 literally because of his leadership. I mean, it wasn't because of points, and it wasn't because of anything else. It's because he was the captain of a successful team that won 3 Stanley Cups, and they felt like they needed to put him in there. I mean, that list is kind of a running joke at this point, right? I mean, not many people take that too seriously. When you have guys like Malkin and Thornton out of the list, you've got Keith and Taves on the list.
Yeah, this league does so many dumb things. This is my favorite league. They do so many dumb things. So much to talk about with them.
So I'm wondering if you saw this last game. It wasn't the Ducks game, but it was against it was a Chicago game the other day. Scott Foster was an emergency goaltender who got into the game. Dean was asking in the chat, he's curious about the chances Scott Foster gets a look by a team in need of a goaltender after stopping 7 out of 7 shots last night at 36 years old.
Even stopped him by Big Buff. He made a couple of saves on some key guys.
He made a cross-crease save on Paul Stastny off a great pass from Patrick Laine, which was like a highlight reel save, which we'd probably be talking about if it was anybody but an emergency league, emergency backup goaltender who's 36 years old. So I don't think he gets any looks for any team. I mean, really, nobody's looking for a guy who's played 14 minutes of NHL time and has made 7 saves in the National Hockey League. So, I mean, maybe Edmonton is in that much need of a goaltender, or Arizona, but I don't think Scott Foster's getting any calls anytime soon.
No, I don't think so. It's a great story, and I hate the Blackhawks with a passion, but I mean, I applaud him on that. I thought it was great. They even had his name played up in the locker room. The media loved it. The team loved it. It was all just a great spectacle. I thought it was awesome. And it's so funny though. Like, media is hilarious. They come out and say like, "Oh, beer league guy suits up for the NHL." And it's like, okay, yeah, but he plays in the top of the beer leagues, right? He's not playing where I would play or my buddies would play. Like, he's playing at the high level. And you have to have a resume, a hockey resume, for you to be an emergency backup. You're not just some couch potato that they pull into the arena and put you up in pads. Like, he's got skill. I mean, obviously he's not an NHLer. He would be in the NHL. But I feel like he's not going to be getting too many calls for sure. There's so many other guys that are ready to come in. But it was a great story. I loved it.
Yeah, but let's kind of wrap things up here and go and talk about the remaining 4 games of the season for the Ducks. So they've got 3 of them at home, and the last one of the season against Arizona is on the road. How do you think they match up in these next 4 games, starting with Colorado?
I feel like they match up pretty well. I'm not too worried about the way that if they play the game they played tonight, the next 3 games, at least the next 4 games. I know that surprisingly, I feel like that Arizona game is going to be tough, just because for whatever reason they decided to play decent hockey, and Antti Raanta has been pretty damn good as of late. This Colorado team's got a lot to prove, and they're in the same spot as Anaheim, right? They're fighting for every point. That's a dangerous game for them. Bruce coming to town on Wednesday. That's a tough one to judge. How do you feel about Brucey and his team coming to Anaheim? Honestly, the Wild, I know that they haven't been much talked about. It's not like they're a super scary team. They're missing some, the star power. They have good guys on the team. They don't have that star power coming into the lineup. They don't have a Getzlaf. They don't have, for whoever else you want to talk about, like a Nathan McKinnon like Colorado does.
Yeah, they've always kind of been an interesting team where they've always been in the mix, but like you said, they don't have that guy. They just have a lot of, I guess you consider depth players in a sense. I mean, Zach Parise at one time was considered a star, but he's been hurt most of the season, and then he's kind of regressed a bit. But they've got a lot of guys who just produce points out of nowhere. Essentially, I mean, Jason Zucker has 61 points this year, 31 goals, 30 assists. It's kind of like a Raquel type of season for him. Eric Stahl has 40 goals and 74 points this year, which is unbelievable. He's back to the player that you'd expected back in the early 2000s. And Mikael Granlund has 63 points in 72 games. So they've got guys who can hurt you. They've got guys all over the lineup. It's a pretty deep team. They just kind of have some holes in certain areas, and Dubnyk hasn't necessarily been as strong as they would have expected from him. But I think they're one of the scariest teams, if not probably the hardest matchup the Ducks have left. And that's not to put anything against Colorado, but Colorado is really Nathan MacKinnon or bust, and that's pretty much it for them. And I think the Ducks might get an easier matchup considering the Avalanche play the Ducks and then they play LA the day after. So we might see Jonathan Bernier or we might see Varlamov. So I think that's could be an easier matchup. But this one against Minnesota is definitely going to be the toughest one. It's going to be an interesting matchup. The games against Minnesota are always tight games. They're always difficult games, but I think the Ducks.
The last one was a shootout, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So they're always kind of boring defensive games, but I think the Ducks have the advantage of being at home, and if they can play like they did tonight against LA, where they don't necessarily have to wow anybody offensively, but they take advantage of their chances and play a solid defensive game, I think that's how you beat Minnesota.
Yeah, they just beat up the Stars last night 5-2.
Yeah.
So,
but the Stars are getting beat up by everybody. So
that's what I'm saying though. So the easier matchups are probably Phoenix and Dallas. The tougher ones are Colorado and the Wild. So I got to ask you, man. I got to put you on the spot again. I'm going to go through all 4 remaining games, and you got to give me the W or the L in each one of these. I'm going to hold you to it. Sunday, Colorado, is that a win or a loss for Anaheim?
I'm going to say it's a win. I feel like this game is going to give them a lot of motivation, and they know it's a must-game win as well. This team always shows up in those must-win games, and I think this Colorado game is going to be no different than the game tonight. Obviously, that Kessler line is going to have to show up again if they're the line that gets matched up against Nathan MacKinnon. But I feel like they can get it done. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think it's one they can pull it a win.
Did you see Matt Angel in chat said Stahl has 40 goals? Because I know that I was asking how you feel about it. But Varlamov got injured, so we're most likely going to see Jonathan Bernier.
Yeah, which will be interesting. We could. I mean, I don't know. Again, if Varlamov is injured, then we're either going to see Bernier or whoever their third goalie is, which I'm checking right now, is Andrew Hammond.
Oh, the Hamburglar.
So it all depends on who Colorado wants to play against either the Ducks or LA. So we could see Jonathan Bernier or we could see Andrew Hammond. Andrew Hammond's played one game this year. He lost, but he played pretty good against Philadelphia. So I don't know. I don't think there's any difference between the two. I think just right now, because of the lack of games that Andrew Hammond's played, I'd probably rather play him. He hasn't had a lot of experience in the NHL this season, so I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting. There's always a story there if you play Jonathan Bernier, but he also has played against the Kings as well, so it's kind of hard to predict at this point.
All right, now we move on to Wednesday against the Minnesota Wild. Are you chalking this one up as a win as well?
This is a tough game. I think the Ducks, they're right on par. I think they're on the same level with Minnesota. They're not far off in points. I think it's going to be a close game. I give the Ducks a slight advantage for being at home, so I think it'll be a win. It could be one of those games that go to overtime, but I honestly think they pick up the win.
All right, now we're talking Dallas on Friday. That's got to be a W.
Yeah, see, Dallas has lost, let's see, 9 of their last 10 games. So
buddy. Isn't their only win the overtime game?
Yes. They won in overtime against Philadelphia. That was
on a hell of a play, too.
Yeah, and their only other wins in that month came against the Ducks on the 9th of March and against St. Louis in overtime on the 3rd of March. So they've lost a lot of games. I don't really see it turning around for them. It is their second last game of the season. They play the Kings the next day. Unless they turn things around, it has to be a win for Anaheim. But I feel like it's going to be one of those trap games where the Ducks might be in a position where they're already in a playoff spot if they get those wins against Colorado and Minnesota. And I honestly think it's going to be a loss because I feel like it's going to be like the Vancouver game where it's an expected win. But the Ducks are in a position now where they don't necessarily need those points. If they win the 2 games like they said they would, I think it's going to be a loss.
That's a tough one. And then I don't like that. I don't want a loss on Friday. That's good. That's not good. Going into Saturday, the final game of the regular season, hopefully not the final game of our Ducks season. We're going to be playing in Arizona against the Coyotes, a much different team than we'd expect to see. How do you feel this shakes out for the Ducks?
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's been playing better as of late, but they're still not a great team.
Right.
And I think this is going to be one of those games where they probably call up a lot of younger guys, and they just kind of see what they can, see what they can get from some of these guys who've been playing in the AHL all season. It should be a win for the Ducks. I mean, it is a back-to-back game, so we probably don't see Gibby unless they obviously need the points from this game. I have to chalk up as a win. I'm not going to say they're going to lose against Arizona. I think it's going to be tougher than it seems, but it's a game I think they can win. It is in Arizona, so it does factor into it a bit, but I think it's a win for the Ducks. So it's a win, a loss, and a win.
So the Ducks would get 6 points out of this.
Yes.
And that would – we have to really – I mean, the way this all shakes out
6 points
is just nerve-wracking.
Yeah. But
yeah,
six points because you would beat you'd beat Colorado, so you would have 95 points with 3 games remaining. Colorado would have 92, so the max they could get is 98. And then you go out and you get those 2 wins, that puts you at 99, so you're in the playoffs. So it might come down to that last game.
4?
Yeah, I mean, essentially. Yeah, I mean, well, they have to beat Colorado, and then they have to win the 2 of the remaining 3 games after that to get in. That's how. I mean, I guess that's how it shakes out right now. Yeah, you beat Colorado, then you win 2 of 3, and you're in the playoffs. It's going to come down possibly to that last game, though.
Well, you're going to have to either curse me or bless me at the end of this week, because I'm going to the game on Wednesday and I'm going to the game on Friday. So if I'm there and they lose both those games, then you can blame me on Saturday or on during the post game of each one of those shows. But it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be a nerve-wracking week. It's exciting time, though, man. I love this time of year for hockey as much as anything else, really. I don't really think there's another sport that even comes close to the type of excitement that happens with the NHL playoffs. It's the best time of year.
Yeah. I'm not going to break down like different leagues and stuff like that, but the NBA never really comes close because the best teams are just that much better than everybody else, so it doesn't really matter the race getting in. The NHL is just on a different level because pretty much any team who gets in can win it. There's obviously some elite teams, but this race, especially for the Ducks, just being involved has been insane because we haven't seen it in a long time in Anaheim, where the Ducks are kind of battling to get into the playoffs, and we don't really know yet if they're going to make it. Obviously, today's win was huge, and it puts them in a good position to get in, but there's still 4 games remaining, and anything can happen in these remaining 4 games. There's a big one coming up against the Avalanche on Sunday, and this is another season-defining game, and it's going to be just as nerve-wracking going into that game as it was going into the game against LA today, because a loss there, you lose that game in hand against LA, and you get Colorado picking up 2 points and moving in front of you in the standings, and then you're kind of playing from behind, and you're hoping other teams lose.
That's scary. Well, I think that's time for us to wrap it up. We all love tonight's game. Ducks coming out on top thanks to Raquel's overtime winner against the Kings. We will talk to you guys on Sunday. If you haven't already, I know we say it every show, but we appreciate everything you guys have done for us on social media, hopping in on the chats. If you haven't already, can you please hop into iTunes, subscribe, and then leave us a review. That helps us out. Give us a 5-star and say something nice. We'd love you guys for it. And hit us up on Twitter. Stay tuned for the 3-star leaderboard. I'm sure Eddie will be working on that tonight or tomorrow morning to get that up for you guys. We'll have a grand prize winner for the month of March. We'll be announcing that soon, so stay tuned for that if you've been in the running. Who is leading right now going into it?
Yes, we have. Yes, Ricky Bradley was leading going into tonight. I'm going to pull up the leaderboard real quick because he had 9 points going into tonight, and I believe Kestrel Scott was in second at 7, tied with somebody else, and there was a bonus point tonight, so there's 4 points up for grabs. So there's a lot of opportunity to get in. So let's see. So it was Ricky Bradley was in first with 9. McCann is right, and Kestrel Scott were with 7. And then there was 6 people with 6 points. So there's a ton of people in the mix. And it's pretty exciting because